Until somebody pays you money, you don't have anything. So no matter how many people tell you you have something awesome, which everyone will, because they like you. So just don't believe them until somebody gives you money. And the only way to do that is to reach out to people that you don't know.
I'm excited to continue our conversation, now hearing more of your story, your journey as a Tech Leader founder. Where did it all begin, and how did you get to where you are now?
Because I don't know where to start. I look back on my childhood, and I was starting businesses when I was a kid, and I didn't really realize it. They weren't successful at all. When I was a computer nerd in junior high and high school, and I thought everyone in the world would want to learn how to program computers. And so, as a 16-year-old, I just started a computer programming education, like tutoring school, and practically no one signed up for it. So I didn't realize that was business. I just thought it would be a cool thing, to do and make some money. But what really got me fired up about entrepreneurship was I was actually an English lit major in college, and I had to have a half a credit to keep my scholarship in my last semester. And so I picked this entrepreneurship lecture series. And I had this view, like a lot of people in the humanities have, I think, of business at the time, of business as just a bunch of money grubbing sort of, hypocritical, selfish, non-creative people just, focused on money. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of my perspective, which was completely uneducated. But but I thought this entrepreneurship thing sounded interesting. So they had these alumni come and speak. And I was just so surprised at how creative it was. And then, of course, started thinking about problem solving and solutions, kind of the inventiveness. And then the fact that you could, at the time, I think I was making all of $5 an hour at my on-campus job. And then, the idea that somehow I could have unlimited potential in terms of compensation in some way and not have to be stuck to like renting myself out, basically, just thrilled me. And I immediately went out and started, like that semester, I started 4 businesses, which was just dumb. I didn't know that you shouldn't start 4 businesses all at the same time. I thought if they're all good ideas, they should all just take off. Yeah. I had a long learning curve. And it was really about 10 years later that I started my first technology company. And maybe 15 years, 10 to 15, it was kind of an e-learning company that evolved into the collaborative e-learning authoring company that I started.
What was that? Was that Rapid Intake or?
Intake. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Rapid Intake, and so that's kind of where the genesis happened, and it was very gratifying after that those 10 to 15 years to finally merge this growing love of entrepreneurship with my computer nerdy side that I had in junior high and high school. I don't know why it took me so long in that period to realize that's what I should be doing, but it took me all that time to figure that out.
It's interesting that the journey that ourselves have to go on first before we can really connect all the dots.
Yeah.
When obviously then Consensus is not the first company that you've run. Now, this being your second or third?
It was the second technology company.
Second technology company that you've run. The beginning foundations of it was actually called DemoChimp before, correct?
Right. Yeah.
Which there's a whole story to that, I'm sure. When you started, did you bootstrap it? Did you get VC funding right from the beginning? How did that begin?
So I took some of the proceeds from the exit from Rapid Intake, mm-hmm. and was the initial seed money, basically, for the first 9 to 12 months, and got the initial product built, beta tested, 7 initial customers. And that was kind of the proof that they were paying me. And so that was proof there was something there. And that led to them kind of getting the official seed round after that.
For your first company, did you, Rapid Intake, did you get funding or did you bootstrap that?
No, it's interesting. It was all bootstrapped, and it was quite the journey. We had mortgaged our house. We had just kind of this typical thing, run up all the credit cards. I had a business partner, Steve Hancock, and he and I both leveraged everything we had It's kind of one of these classic stories. It was really quite a burden carrying it. Our wives were kind of looking at us, with the stinky eyebrow sort of thing. And it was very, it was great to finally exit, get all that debt paid off, have quite a bit left over to do some other things and make believers out of our wives too. So that was a first big step towards doing this company.
You make a great point as far as spouses of, it's easy to look back now and say, oh yeah, everything worked out just fine. But when you're in the thick of it, the middle of it, or the beginning.
It's like Elon Musk says that it's like eating glass, right? And I think that's the best description I've ever heard of being a founder of a tech company.
Indeed. If you had to share a lesson learned of that initial stages of getting your first couple customers and clients in either business, DemoChimp or Consensus, or even the first one you had, Rapid Intake, what comes to your mind that you're like, wow, you would really want another entrepreneur to know, a tactic that worked, or even a thought?
Yeah, I think a couple of brief things. One is, until somebody pays you money, you don't have anything. So no matter how many people tell you you have something awesome, which everyone will, because they like you. So just don't believe them until somebody gives you money. And the only way to do that is to reach out to people that you don't know. So when I started Consensus, which we called DemoChimp at the time, we read this great book called Nail It, Then Scale It, kind of along the lines of the Lean Startup. And they advocated for the validation stage to just cold call a bunch of prospective customers in your target market. So we cold called about 100, and we got about a 30% hit rate of people that wanted to talk to us. So that was the initial kind of, oh, people are interested in this problem. And then out of those 30, we got 7 people willing to pay us, at beta stage. And so that's, I guess, the main point is, to really get traction, you've got to, and know that you've got something real, you've got to get somebody to pay you money. And so you got to go through that difficult process of reaching out to people that don't necessarily like you, like your friends and family. Not to say they don't like you, but
yeah, they won't give you what you really need. You need actual customers to tell you, this is what I would buy this. So 100 down to 30. That's interesting numbers of how you work that. In today's world where we're just like bombarded and overwhelmed, how would you get people's attention? What would you recommend getting someone's attention where we're overloaded with constant distractions?
At that early stage?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think it's the way we did it, and I don't know if this is the best way, but we just said, hey, we're a couple of entrepreneurs, and we're trying to solve this problem, and we'd really like your feedback. Are you interested in talking? And that was it. And I think the reason that got through the noise is just because it's not, hey, we're trying to sell something. In fact, we specifically said, we're not trying to sell something. We just want your feedback. And that was true. I mean, we weren't, in the end, we did want them to, but our goal was really just to get feedback initially and just go through iterative cycles of feedback. And at the end of every feedback session, by the way, we would say, if this were live today, would you buy it? And if they would say no, we'd say, why not? If they would say yes, we'd say why. And that would tell us a lot about it. And so eventually we would say, so we are building this, and if it were live today, would you buy it? And then it was like, now it's built, will you buy it? They're like, well, yeah. So some of them had to say yes again after agreeing all those times, I suppose.
I love that. No matter actually how they answer, that's okay.
Yeah, it is okay.
You'd be able to ask them either way. What would you say some common mistakes that you see people are doing right now in marketing in the 21st century that like you would say from your experience, oh, you should do it differently?
Wow. Well, what I've learned about marketing, I've learned the most about effective marketing in the last 18 months, really. And it's really about using premium content to drive content marketing. So this came about. So at the beginning of our story with Consensus, we were focused on small business marketers and sales and marketing. And without going into all the details, we've now completely changed over to sales engineering teams in large enterprise companies. And so when we got focused on sales engineers, we had to go try to find sales engineers. Well, there wasn't a community, there wasn't a place, there were no lists to buy, there were no conferences to go to. So how do you reach them? So we started thinking, oh, SEO, maybe we need to write some blog articles. It's a common wisdom is build a blog and attract people to your site. Well, that's a really long tail journey because it takes a long time to build up SEO authority and things. And we're just thinking, so as we were researching keyword terms, we saw sales engineer search terms, sales engineer salary. We're like, oh, sales engineers are searching for salaries. So we thought, I wonder how much they get paid. So we started searching for salaries. Well, it turns out there was no information about sales engineer salaries out there. And so we thought if everybody's searching for that, we should do a sales engineering compensation report. So we surveyed about 450 sales engineers and sales engineering leaders, published a report, and then started promoting it on LinkedIn. And so that was uniquely interesting to our audience. So that is the basis of the success we've had in the last 18 to 24 months is doing things like that, where you pick a premium piece of content that is missing that that specific audience wants. And I would say that the mistake that a lot of founders make is pouring all the content marketing effort into the blog. And while the blog is important, but you can drive a ton of leads and results by just one really interesting piece of content.
You just hit a bunch of different insights right there. Briefly, you covered the fact that going from DemoChimp to Consensus, realizing targeting only one specific industry and the power to that. Then to realize that just general SEO and just writing blogs, that doesn't necessarily reap benefits, at least not right away, for sure.
Yeah.
But then to create a piece of content that they absolutely need, and it may not have anything to do with your product or even directly that effort, but they want it.
It brings the right people and gives them the awareness. So that was really an awareness stage. And we coupled it with this research around sales engineering workload, which underscored all the problems that they have. Oh, it takes a week before people get their demos. Oh, they have 30% of unqualified demos. Things like
that conversation over then to
right. It kind of gets them to move in that direction. Yeah.
Nice. Okay. This development of creating these strategies and all that obviously isn't you by yourself, requires a team. So what are your insights on developing a good team to be able to both come up with the ideas and execute these plans and grow the company?
Oh man, that's, I think that's the hardest part because the people are everything. And I don't know that I have any fantastic wisdom about that. One thing I guess I've learned in this company in particular is just don't let people stay on the team that you don't like. Just get rid of them. Like if you don't like them, if you can't work with them, don't spend another day. I spent a couple of years at the beginning of my journey with some people that I didn't get along with because I thought, it's just me, I don't know, this or that. And as soon as I got rid of them, I was like, this is so much better. We made better progress, and I shouldn't say get rid of, it's a harsh way of saying it, but it's just, find a better solution. And I think most entrepreneurs have made the mistake of just letting the wrong people stay on the team too long. And it's definitely a mistake I've made several times in both companies.
What qualities do you look for and desire the most in an employee?
For me, number one, it's genuine authenticity. I really can't work with chest thumping bro culture kind of people. That's just me. Some people love that kind of culture. There's nothing wrong with that, but I like to do real work with real people, and I love that authenticity. I also kind of look for a humility in a sense. I'm not in sort of a weak way, but people who are just always learning, they're passionate about growing. And that's another thing is every person that I bring on the team, I hope has a passion outside of work for something. Because I know if they're super obsessed about something, they're gonna bring the same kind of sort of obsessive passion to work, or they can. As an example, one of the engineers I hired was a topiary expert, which I didn't even know what topiary was until I interviewed him. He's the most quiet guy I've ever met, ever in my life. I mean, he probably said 50 words total in our whole interview. It was so hard to get him to talk about anything, but topiary is shaping shrubs into animals. And so he just loved that. Like, he was an artist at shaping shrubs, but he was a brilliant software engineer. So that's just an example, but it's kind of bizarre, but I think, hiring people that have passion outside of work shows that they can get excited about something and really pour themselves into something. And then it's trying to help transfer some of that passion into the common cause.
I'm going to move on to then more of looking forward in this current environment that we're in. What kind of challenges do you see you're going to need to overcome in order to keep growing, both internally with your own employees because of COVID and this social distancing, as well as externally with your clients? What kind of challenge do you see you're going to need to overcome?
I think one of the biggest challenges we're facing right now is just growth. We had so many leads come in. Speaking of premium content, we did this initial conference, right? That I mentioned, the virtual conference. We had 3,000 people sign up. And that was just an overwhelming number of leads. We didn't have enough people to really process those effectively right away.
And it's a happy problem.
And yeah, it's a great problem. Yeah, especially, given that, a few years ago when we were kind of wandering in the wilderness of indecision, trying to find the right target market, that, it's a great problem to have. But now that we're just really exploding in our lead generation, pipeline development, we're hiring a lot right now. And so I think putting in the infrastructure for rapid growth is one of the biggest challenges we're going to have. As far as the pandemic goes, we're actually quite fortunate. We've lost a few customers because of it, or we've had delayed payments and things like that. But because our software helps teams sell digitally and remotely effectively, it's actually increased interest in a lot of our customer sites as well. So, I'm hoping it'll be a net positive all in all. So for us, the pandemic does not pose as big of a challenge as it does for some solutions or some industries. But I think the growth is probably the biggest hurdle, and helping the team that we have really step into the roles needed, or get used to being working with people that we may hire over them, you might say, as we grow. So I'm not looking forward to working through all that, but it's got to be done.
As the CEO, you get the challenge of having to manage the growth and the people. And I imagine you have to almost change your own mindsets as you meet new benchmarks and to new spots. Speaking of learning and growing yourself, has there been any pivotal books or audiobooks or podcasts that you've listened to and would recommend?
A Failure of Nerve. So
right.
This is by far the best leadership book I've ever read. Just as a little teaser, have you ever heard of a peacemonger? I mean, you hear of warmongers.
Right.
About peacemongers. Basically, a peacemonger, according to this author, who's Edwin Friedman, is a leader who cares so much about not making waves or hurting people's feelings that they sacrifice the progress of the entire team. And I think it's a major mistake. And I'm somebody who can empathize easily with other people, and I have in the past tended to overstate the importance of thinking about other people's feelings. And so, Failure of Nerve is a really great book. I also like The One Thing, which is my favorite business book in general, about personal productivity and organizational productivity. So those are two recommendations, I guess.
Last question for you. What kind of technology innovation do you predict we will see in the near term, the next year or so, and the long term, 5-10 years?
I am not good at this, I have to say. So I'll just say that up front.
All good. Whatever comes to your mind, whatever you think.
Oh, man. Innovations. one of the things I'm excited about, totally unrelated to our business, are electric airplanes. So zero emission airplanes. So I think that's pretty exciting. It's already happening, but I'm excited about the self-driving, self-flying plane. There's an interesting jet by Cirrus that will actually land itself now. So if the pilot gets incapacitated, the passengers can just hit this red button on the ceiling, and it's called Safe Land, and it will navigate through weather and terrain, find the nearest airport, automatically call the emergency personnel, and have them there in case anything goes wrong, and land the plane. So that's the first step in what I'm looking forward to that. So,
is there a pilot on the plane? No, we have an autopilot. We're fine. Yeah, they literally will land the plane. Nice.
Yeah, I think so. So that's just a personal passion of mine is aviation. But
exciting things we can look forward to.
Yeah.
Have you seen a company using AI, machine learning, or other technology to transform the way we live, work, and do business? Go to uptechreport.com and let us know.